So first, what's your name, and can you describe a little bit about your job and what you do?
Sure. My name is Chris Bentley. I am the Director of Strategic Communications for the Defense Vetting Directorate. And what I do is the Defense Vetting Directorate is part of an agency called DCSA, the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. So my responsibility is leading a team of individuals who have the responsibility of strategically messaging or communicating the activities and accomplishments of the directorate to all the stakeholders that we influence.
So, talking a little bit about leadership, what does it mean to be a strong leader to you personally?
To me, being a strong leader means that you are looking out for the people in your charge. Many people will look at leadership as being a trait of moving X to Y or getting widgets produced. I don't look at it that way. Obviously, you need to have product done in a very concise, professional manner to be successful. But the way to do that is not to demand, it's to build relationships with employees and then look after them. I found through the years that if you take care of the people that you're in charge of, they in turn will take care of you.
So, how do you kind of start those relationships when you become a leader? Like, how do you draw those connections to people?
So I think there are many different ways, but one of the things I do, as trite as it sounds, is when take a job, I actually sit down with individuals one-on-one, usually take about an hour of time, and just ask them questions to start building that relationship so that I can know about their families, I can know about their past work experience, I can know about their education, know about their hobbies and things of that nature. So that's the first step, as I see it. And then following on that is finding ways to further develop those relationships without people even realizing you're doing it. So one of the things I like to do is I will take and I will send out an email to an entire group of people that I supervise, and I will ask them, you need to let me know at our next staff meeting what your favorite book is and why. Or I need to know what your favorite song of all time is and why. Or I need to know what your favorite movie is of all time and why. Or, please share with the group the favorite photograph that you've ever taken before. And so I find doing things like that further develops those relationships where we kind of build a mutual ground that we can always come back to. One of the examples that I like to point to of that is we did the photo exercise in a past agency, and we had tremendous photographs of balloon launches in Arizona and of a child blowing out a birthday candle, just things that were on people's mind, the things that they really wanted to show and thought was very important to them. I had one young lady who showed a picture of a sidewalk, and on the sidewalk were a number of crosses. They were just little red crosses, and they would fill a block of a sidewalk. And we all looked at the photograph, and we couldn't quite get it. And her name was Griffin, and we asked Griffin, what's the significance of this photograph? And she went on to explain to us that she had been in Sarajevo during the summer, and as she was walking Sarajevo, she took this photograph of the sidewalk because she didn't quite realize what it was, only to come to realize, or to come to learn, that the crosses represented an individual who was killed on that section of the sidewalk during the Civil War that took place there in Sarajevo. It was an incredible emotional moment, and it just formed one of those connections between she and I that wouldn't have happened other than asking her to share something about herself with the group and with me.
So, how did you come to realize that things like that draw people together? Like, did you have a leader that you looked up to who taught you those things, or is that something that you just evolved as you started?
I've come to learn that nothing happens by chance. Everything has a reason behind it. So yes, very early in my career, I was blessed to be able to work for a gentleman who had that kind of leadership, that servant leadership, wanting to build relationships with people. And I have tried to emulate him in every opportunity I've ever had throughout my professional career. So he very much taught, he very much modeled, if you will, the idea of building relationships, getting to know the people that you work with, and almost fostering a family-like atmosphere. And I can tell you, to this day, I haven't worked for that gentleman for more than 30 years now. But to this day, we are still in contact with each other. He still has a cabin out in West Virginia that he invites my family and I to visit whenever we want to. It's the type of relationship that I hope to have with the individuals that I'm lucky enough to supervise in the future.
So when you learned those lessons from him and you moved on to your first like real leadership position, was there any times where you tried something to build a relationship and it just kind of failed and pushed people away?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So you'll find that these types of activities are not for everyone, and that's okay. As a leader, you need to find other avenues to pursue to build those relationships. So, for example, if I want to do something in a group setting, maybe I realize that the individual that I need to reach doesn't like to do things in a group setting. And he uses an example of this. Years ago, I had a man who worked for me as my deputy. He was instrumental. So a lot of my success during the time that we worked together was because of him, not because of me. I think for his retirement, he made it very clear that he didn't want anything done publicly. He only wanted to have something done individually, which is fine. But I had that relationship with him ahead of time to know he doesn't like to do things publicly. He wants to do things privately. So instead of doing something as a group, I knew enough about Bill and what he would like to have done to plan a small lunch type of activity with him and a very small group of people to thank him for his service. The kind of the bottom line to that whole thing is it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not one size fits all and everyone gets crammed into the same box as a leader. It's each and every individual is unique. And so part of the challenge of leading is figuring out how to communicate effectively with, how to build those relationships with each and every person. And I can guarantee you, the thing that'll work for person A probably won't work for person B exactly the same way, if at all. So you're constantly looking for new ways to forge those relationships.
And I don't know if you've had personal experience with this, but what advice would you give to somebody who maybe tried approach A with someone who it didn't work with and that kind of started their relationship off on a bad step? How do you rebound from that?
So one of the things that I really like to kind of herald is the fact that I think a lot of leadership involves listening. You as a leader are not going to have the answer to every problem or the solution to every relationship right off the bat. You need to listen to people. You need to pick up those nonverbal and verbal cues that are going to tell you what is working and what isn't working. So my biggest piece of advice would be, whether things are working or not working, is simply invest the time to listen to people. Listen to what they want. Listen to what they need. It's almost that put yourself in a person's shoes and figure out their likes and dislikes. Don't try to assume you know because someone else likes it that way. Spend the time to get to know what they want to have happen.
Okay, and finally, what's a piece of advice that you wish you had gotten right as you were starting out in leadership?
Well, this is kind of on a very, very personal side, is that not everyone has the same level of integrity that you may assume. I would say personally, I am somewhat a naive person. I take them very much at face value, always assuming the best of people. And so I wish, as I was very early in this kind of leadership gig, if you will, that someone had taken me aside and said, Chris, what you see is not always what you're going to get, or what you think is happening is not always what's going to happen. Because I found that where I would look at things at a certain point in my time as being very, very loyal to people, I have had to come through some kind of rough patches in the leadership world to realize that sometimes people take advantage of loyalty and they use it to their own advantage, and so that maybe what was a blind loyalty at one point in my past, if someone had said, Chris, be aware of that, I think it would have been very beneficial and would have avoided a couple of lessons that I had to learn the hard way.